October 12th, 1974, 10:19 p.m. A single gunshot echoed through the New Hampshire woods, a sound so ordinary in hunting country. No one thought to panic. But by midnight, that gunshot became a scream into the void. 17-year-old David Longfellow lay dead in his girlfriend's arms, his blood staining the seats of a pickup truck. The killer? A shadow, a knock on a window, a face Sarah Mills couldn't describe. For 50 years, this town has buried its secrets in fall leaves and winter snow. But tonight we dig. A night so still, the crunch of dried leaves under tires could have been heard a mile away. 17-year-old David Longfellow and his girlfriend, Sarah Mills, drove down a dirt road tucked deep in New Hampshire's backcountry. A spot locals called Lover's Lookout. Just two kids, a rusty pickup truck, and the kind of quiet that makes you feel invincible. But invincibility dies young. A single gunshot cracked through the valley. Not unusual for hunting season. Not worth a 911 call. But this bullet wasn't meant for deer. It tore through David's chest, silencing his laugh mid-sentence. Sarah would later tell police the shooter didn't say a word. No demand, no rage, just a silhouette against the headlights, a gloved hand, and the smell of gunpowder mixing with David's blood. By dawn, the town of Hanover woke to a nightmare. A star athlete, homecoming king, honor student, the boy who mowed Mrs. Callahan's lawn every Sunday was gone. The killer? A ghost. No footprints, no shell casing, no motive, just questions festering for decades. Was it random? A grudge? Or something darker, hiding in plain sight? 50 years later, the trees still lean over that dirt road like they're keeping a secret. David's yearbook photo still smiles from the in memoriam page. And somewhere in this quiet corner of New England, someone knows exactly what happened that night. Hanover, New Hampshire. Fall of 1974. A town so small, the diner's jukebox played the same 5 songs on loop, and the grocery store closed for every high school football game. Maple trees burned crimson and gold. Smoke curled from chimneys. And everybody knew David Longfellow. He wasn't just the kid who scored the winning touchdown. He was the one who helped carry old Mr. Finch's groceries to his truck every Thursday. The boy who'd sneak his little sister candy after their mom said no. The kind of teenager who made adults say, "That one's going places." And maybe that's why his death cut so deep. Because David wasn't just gone. The future itself felt stolen. Then there was Sarah Mills, 16 years old, with paint-stained jeans and a sketchbook full of charcoal portraits she'd never let anyone see. Quiet but sharp, the kind of quiet that notices. She'd blush when David cracked jokes in the hallway, her laughter barely a whisper. But on October 12th, she became the sole witness to a horror that would define her life. They'd borrowed her brother's Chevy pickup, forest green, dented tailgate, a cassette player that ate more tapes than it played. They parked at Lover's Lookout, a patch of gravel framed by pines so thick, even the moon couldn't pry through. To them, it was freedom. To the killer, it was a trap. But here's what no one wants to say out loud. Hanover wasn't just a town. It was a web, a place where the pastor knew your sins before you confessed them, where the waitress at Mel's Diner could tell you who'd ordered coffee at midnight. Secrets didn't stay buried here. They got tucked under porch steps, folded into casserole recipes, passed down like heirlooms. So when the police found nothing, no murder weapon, no tire tracks, no strangers lurking at the gas station, the town didn't breathe a sigh of relief. It held its breath, because if the killer wasn't a drifter, he was still here. And if David's death wasn't random, someone had been waiting. Let's break it down, minute by minute, second by second, because in the span of 16 minutes, a first date turned into a funeral. 10:03 p.m., David Longfellow slides into the passenger seat of Sarah Mills' pickup, grinning as the radio crackles to life. "Hey Jude," hums through tinny speakers. They're laughing about something stupid. A math teacher's comb-over, maybe, or the fact Sarah's brother's truck smells like wet dog and gasoline. They turn onto Route 112, gravel pinging the undercarriage. The woods swallow them whole. 10:17 p.m., Sarah adjusts the rearview mirror. Headlights flicker behind them. She doesn't panic. Lover's Lookout's a popular spot, after all. Just another couple seeking privacy. But these headlights don't park. They idle. Then a shadow splits the glare. A figure approaches. Sarah freezes. David squeezes her hand. "It's fine," he says. 10:19 p.m., 3 knocks. Sharp. Precise. David rolls down the window halfway. Just enough for the cold air to slither in. No words. No mask. just a glint of metal under the moonlight. Sarah will later tell police the gun looked small, almost like a toy. Then a flash. A pop no louder than a firecracker. David's head jerks back. The Coke bottle slips from his hand, syrup mixing with blood on the floorboards. Sarah doesn't remember screaming, doesn't remember the engine roaring, the killer's tires spitting mud as they vanish. She'll only recall the weight of David's body, the way his breath gurgled as she cradled him. "Stay with me," she begged. But by the time Deputy Walsh skidded to the scene at 10:47 p.m., David was gone. His left hand still clutched a Polaroid from earlier that night. Sarah, mid-laugh, blurred like a ghost. The evidence? A size 10 boot print in the mud, pointing toward the truck. No shell casing. No fingerprints. No footprints leading back to the road. Just a boy, a girl, and a killer who moved like smoke. Here's what keeps detectives up at night. That boot print. It wasn't from some cheap work boot. It was expensive, custom tread, likely Italian-made. The kind of boot a drifter couldn't afford. The kind of boot someone local might own. So why didn't Sarah recognize the shooter? Or did she? The bullet that killed David Longfellow didn't just end a life. It shattered a town. By sunrise, Hanover was a hive of panic. Parents kept their kids indoors. Teachers canceled classes. The police station flooded with calls. Did they catch him yet? Was it a serial killer? But answers? Those were in short supply. Deputy Roy Walsh, the first officer on the scene, would later say the smell of blood in Sarah's truck stayed with him for weeks. Like copper and gasoline, he wrote in his report. For days, officers combed the woods around Lover's Lookout, pocketing cigarette butts, beer cans, even a hairpin. Anything that might be a clue. But the only thing they found? Silence. And a single boot print, pressed deep into the mud near the driver's side door. Then came the tips. Hundreds of them. A waitress at Mel's Diner swore she'd served a shifty-eyed drifter a burnt coffee that night. A mechanic named Frank Brewer, who'd once yelled at David for eyeing his daughter, suddenly became public enemy number one. Even David's biology partner, Mike Harlow, wasn't spared. He was jealous of David's grades, a classmate claimed. But when police dug deeper, the drifter had a rock-solid alibi, 200 miles away in Vermont. Frank Brewer was at his brother's poker game. Mike Harlow? Cramming for a chemistry test at the library. Dead end after dead end. And then there was Sarah, traumatized, trembling, replaying the nightmare in her head. When detectives asked her to describe the killer, her voice cracked. A man, I think. Dark jacket. Maybe tall. I don't know. No face. No accent. No scars. Just a shadow burned into her memory. But here's where the story twists. That boot print by the truck. Size 10. Italian leather. Expensive. The kind you'd buy at a shop in Boston, not some backroad gas station. For a moment, hope flickered. Detectives tracked the boot's unique tread to a store in Concord. Only 12 pairs sold in New Hampshire that year. They tracked down 11 owners. All alibis checked out. The 12th pair? Bought in cash. No name. No record. Another ghost. And the gun? A .22 caliber pistol. Small. Quiet. The kind you'd use to shoot squirrels or teenagers. But without the bullet's shell casing, which the killer pocketed, they couldn't link it to a specific weapon. Even the Polaroid in David's hand offered nothing. Just Sarah's smile frozen in time. By Christmas, the case froze over. Newspapers stopped printing updates. Cops moved on to active crimes. David's parents, Helen and Walter, refused to let go. They papered the state with flyers, David's prom photo under bold red letters. Have you seen this boy? They knocked on doors, begged governors, even hired a psychic. She said David's spirit was at peace, Helen told the local paper. But I'm not. I'll never be. Sarah Mills? She vanished, dropped out of school, left town under cover of night. Rumor was she changed her name, moved to Oregon, and became a nurse. But in Hanover, her absence fed the gossip. Why'd she run? Guilt? Fear? Or did she know something? Years slithered by. Teens who'd shared lockers with David grew up, had kids of their own. The 70s became the 80s, then the 90s. Each October 12th, Helen Longfellow placed a Coke bottle and a fresh football jersey at the edge of Lover's Lookout. For David, she'd whisper. But with every passing year, the shrine felt smaller. The world kept spinning, until 2001. A construction crew breaking ground for a new mall found a .22 pistol buried in a drainage ditch, less than a mile from the murder site. Ballistics matched it to David's bullet. Finally, a break, but the gun's serial number had been filed off. No prints, No DNA, just another question. And then the ultimate gut punch. In 2015, a deathbed confession from a man named Vince Coulter, a trucker with a rap sheet longer than Route 112. "I killed that kid," he wheezed to his niece. "Didn't mean to, thought he was someone else." Police scrambled, dug up Vince's work logs. But October 12, 1974, he was hauling lumber in Maine. Another lie, another dead end. Today, Hanover's split in two. Those who believe the killer died long ago, took his secret to the grave, and those who swear he's still out there. An old man sipping coffee at Mel's diner, a grandfather bouncing a kid on his knee, maybe even someone watching this video right now. David's case file? Still open, gathering dust in a cabinet in Grafton County. His parents never lived to see an arrest. Helen passed in 2012, Walter in 2018. Their tombstone reads, "Together again, forever searching." So why tell this story? Because someone knows. A wife who's seen her husband flinch at the mention of Hanover. A daughter who found an old box of bullets in the attic. A retiree with guilt gnawing at his gut. David Longfellow was more than a headline. He was a boy who loved vanilla cokes and Bruce Springsteen, who hated broccoli, who promised his mom he'd take her to Hawaii someday. 50 years is a long time to keep a secret, but it's not too late to end one. In any unsolved murder, suspects are ghosts. Fragments of truth, rumors, and what-ifs. David Longfellow's case had dozens, but 3 names keep resurfacing. 3 men with motive, means, or simply bad luck. Let's meet them. Suspect 1, the drifter Carl Riggs. A 34-year-old trucker with a rap sheet longer than his rig. Assault. Armed robbery. A temper that left bar stools splintered from Nevada to New Hampshire. On October 12, 1974, Riggs was hauling refrigerators from Boston to Montreal. His route? Straight through Hanover. At 9:45 p.m., a gas station clerk off Route 112 claims a man matching Riggs' description. Leather jacket, chipped front tooth, bought a pack of Lucky Strikes and a map. The clerk said the man seemed jittery, kept checking his mirrors. But when police tracked Riggs down, his logbook placed him at a way station 200 miles north by 1 a.m. No time to linger in Hanover. No proof he ever stopped. But here's the catch. Truckers in 1974 often fudged their logs. Easy to pull over, commit a crime, and still make good time. Riggs died in 1998, a bar fight in Tucson. His niece later told reporters he'd drunkenly mutter about a kid in the woods and a gun that jammed. Coincidence? Or confession? We'll never know. Suspect 2, the outcast Eddie Walsh. 19 years old, a high school dropout who worked odd jobs at the scrap yard. Eddie wasn't popular. Quiet, always seen in a frayed denim jacket, greasy hair tucked under a Red Sox cap. And he hated David Longfellow. 3 weeks before the murder, they'd scrapped outside the gym. David's crime? Asking Eddie's kid sister to homecoming. Just a joke, David told friends. But Eddie didn't laugh. He shoved David into a locker, snarling, "You think you're better than us?" Eddie owned a .22 rifle, the same caliber that killed David. When police searched his trailer, they found a cleaning kit, ammo, but no gun. Eddie's mother, Doris, swore he was home that night. Watching Columbo reruns, she said. Never left the couch. But Doris had early-stage dementia. And Eddie? He sold his rifle for cash 2 days after the murder. To whom? Some guy at a pawn shop. No receipt. No name. Eddie died in 2009. Lung cancer. His last words to his sister? Tell David's mom, "I'm sorry, for the fight," or something darker. The answer's buried with him. Suspect 3, the stranger in the diner. Now we come to the phantom. No name, no face, just a story. The day before the murder, David stopped at Mel's diner for fries and a shake. A waitress named Betty claims a man in a military jacket. Late 20s, buzz cut, scar on his chin, sat next to David. They argued. Betty couldn't hear the words, but David's fists were clenched. The man left first, slamming the door so hard the bell tore off its hinge. Was it road rage? A veteran with PTSD? A drug deal gone wrong? Police never found him. No one in town recognized Betty's description. But in 2017, a retired Marine named Greg Riker came forward. He'd been passing through Hanover in '74. Had a scar on his chin. Loved Mel's peach pie. But Riker swore he never fought with David. I was there, yeah. But I just ordered coffee and left. No proof he's lying. No proof he's telling the truth. Just another shadow in a case full of them. So let's connect the dots. Carl Riggs, the The drifter with a violent past, no alibi, and a deathbed hint. Eddie Walsh, the outcast with a motive, a missing gun, and a suspicious apology. The stranger, a ghost in a diner, maybe a red herring, maybe the key. But here's what doesn't add up. Riggs was a stranger. Why target David? No robbery. No sexual assault. Just execution. Eddie had rage, but not cunning. Would a local leave a custom Italian boot print at the scene? And why kill David in public? Too many witnesses. The stranger? If it was random, why no other attacks? No pattern. Unless David knew something, saw something, was something. In 2005, an anonymous letter arrived at the Grafton County Sheriff's Office. Typed, no fingerprints. It read, David wasn't perfect. Ask him about the cabin on Pike Road. Police did. The cabin belonged to a retired teacher, no connection to David. But neighbors reported seeing a black sedan parked there weekends. Teens coming and going. Was it a party spot? A drug den? A secret David took to his grave? We'll likely never know. But here's the truth about small towns. They're mirrors. They show you what you want to see. Football games and fall festivals. But tilt that mirror just right, and the cracks start to show. 3 suspects. 3 stories. All roads lead nowhere. But maybe, you recognize one of these names. Maybe your grandfather traded with Carl Riggs. Maybe your mom dated Eddie Walsh. Maybe you're the stranger in the diner, now gray and frail, reading this on a screen. If so, ask yourself, can you live with the silence? David's mother couldn't. His father couldn't. Sarah Mills? She spent 50 years trying. The clock's ticking. But it's not too late to speak. There are thousands of unsolved murders. But why do some cling to us decades later? Why does David Longfellow's name still echo in the hills of New Hampshire? It's not just the horror of his death. It's the haunting simplicity of it all. A first date, a parked car, a knock on a window. Moments so ordinary they could have been yours. Think about it. How many of us have driven down a quiet road at night, music playing, hearts light? How many have laughed in the safety of darkness, never imagining it could be our last laugh? David's story isn't about a victim, it's about us. The fragile line between living and dying, between memory and oblivion. And that's why it sticks. Because deep down we know it could have been any of us. But there's more. It's the almosts, the nearlies, the threads that dangle just out of reach. Like the rumor of a deathbed confession in 2003. A retired farmer in Vermont whispering to his nurse, I did something terrible in New Hampshire. But by the time detectives arrived, he was gone. No name, no proof, just another ghost. Or the .22 rifle found in 2012, buried under floorboards of an abandoned house near Hanover. Rusted but intact. Ballistics matched it to David's bullet. Finally, justice. But the gun's history? A dead end. Sold at a yard sale in 1981. No records. No owner. A weapon without a story. And then there's Detective Roy Walsh's notebook. The one he kept until his death in 2005. Page 137, scribbled in red ink. Ask Eddie about the boots. But Eddie Walsh died in 2009. The boots? Never found. These aren't just clues. They're taunts. Glimpses of a truth that dances just beyond the light. Let's talk about silence. Sarah Mills never spoke publicly after 1974. Changed her name. Disappeared. But in 1998, a therapist in Portland wrote a book about trauma. One chapter described a patient, Lynn, who'd witnessed her boyfriend's murder as a teen. Lynn recalled a detail she'd never shared. His breath smelled like cloves. Sweet, spicy. I'll never forget it. Cloves. Used in chewing tobacco, certain bourbons, even some menthol cigarettes. A tiny clue, but Hanover was small. How many men smoked clove cigarettes in 1974? How many drank bourbon from a flask? The police never followed up. Lynn refused to say more. That's the agony of this case. The truth isn't missing. It's hiding. In attic boxes. In guilty pauses. In the way an old man avoids eye contact when you mention Route 112. Secrets don't vanish. They just wait. Imagine this. You're cleaning your grandfather's basement. You find a box. Inside, a faded military jacket. A pair of Italian leather boots, size 10. A newspaper clipping from October 13th, 1974. Teen slain at lover's lookout. What do? This is the weight Hanover carries. Every family here has a box. A secret. A what if? Because if the killer wasn't a drifter, he's someone's father. Someone's hero. Someone who mows his lawn every Sunday and prays at St. Mary's. That's why this case breathes. It's not a ghost story. It's a mirror. And mirrors show us the unthinkable. Monsters don't lurk in shadows. They sit at dinner tables. They wave at you from pickup trucks. They grow old. David's case file isn't cold. It's alive, because every few years the wound reopens. In 2020, a TikTok video surfaced. A girl in California lip-syncing to a 70s rock song. Behind her, on a bookshelf, a Polaroid of a boy who looks like David. The internet erupted. Is that him? Turned out no, just a cousin's boyfriend. But for 3 days, the world remembered David Longfellow. That's the thing about the unknown. It refuses to stay buried. It claws its way back through hashtags, documentaries, bored teens scrolling true crime forums at 2 a.m. We need answers. Not just for David, for ourselves. Because if a golden boy in a perfect town can vanish into darkness, what's stopping the dark from coming for us? But here's the truth. David wasn't perfect. He cheated on a chemistry test once. Stole a candy bar from Mel's diner when he was 12. He hated his freckles. Loved Lynyrd Skynyrd. Wanted to be a pilot. That's why this hurts. Not because he was a saint, because he was real. A kid with stubbed toes and crushes and bad haircuts. A kid who didn't deserve to die in the dirt, scared and confused, while someone sped away under a harvest moon. So why keep digging? Why care? Because unresolved grief is a debt, and every year we don't pay it, the interest grows. Hanover owes David this, to say his name, to demand answers, to never let the world forget that he existed. The killer may be dead, may be frail, may not even remember. But David, he's forever 17, forever on the edge of a truth we owe it to him to find. If you're listening, really listening, you know this isn't just about a murder. It's about fear, memory, the lies we tell to sleep at night. But here's the thing about lies, they rot, they crack. And one day, when someone pries open the right box or reads the right journal, or finally whispers, I saw something, that day David's story won't end. It'll begin. And maybe, just maybe, we'll learn how to look at our neighbors again. Not with suspicion, but with the courage to ask, what if? Until then, the question remains, who killed David Longfellow? And the answer remains, someone knows. Time moves forward, but not for David Longfellow. Visit Lover's Lookout today, and you'll find a patch of gravel swallowed by weeds. Birch trees bow over the road like mourners at a graveside. The only sound, wind whistling through broken beer bottles left by teens who don't know the history they're trampling. But if you listen closely, the past whispers. A laugh cut short, a car door slamming, a scream swallowed by the dark. This is where David Longfellow's story stopped. But for everyone else, life lurched on. Sarah Mills didn't attend David's funeral. By the time they lowered his casket into the ground, she was already on a Greyhound bus bound for Oregon. She changed her name, Linda, then Marta, then Emily, as if shedding her skin could erase the memory. Became a nurse, married twice, had a daughter she never let walk to school alone. In 2019, a reporter tracked her down. She answered the door in a faded Pink Floyd t-shirt, gray hair tied in a bun. All she said was, I've spent 45 years trying to forget. Let me. Then she closed the door. No tears, no anger, just the click of a deadbolt. But some nights, when the moon's too bright or the neighborhood dogs won't stop barking, she still dreams of the gunshot. Wakes up tasting copper, reaches for a boy who isn't there. David's parents, Helen and Walter, never left Hanover. They stayed in the same ranch house, David's room untouched, baseball trophies on the shelf, Bruce Springsteen posters curling at the edges. Every October 12th, they'd drive to Lover's Lookout, leave a Coke bottle and a football jersey at the roadside. A ritual, a prayer. When Helen developed Alzheimer's in 2008, she forgot her own name. But she never forgot David. She'd wander the halls at 3 a.m., calling for him. Time for school, sweetheart. You'll miss the bus. Walter would find her at the kitchen table, staring at his untouched oatmeal, whispering, he's late again. They died 7 years apart. Neighbors say their graves face Lover's Lookout, so they can keep waiting, keep watching. But David's classmates? They remember. Every year on the anniversary, they gather at the old high school. Gray hair, bad knees, grandkids texting in the back seat. They drive to Lover's Lookout in a caravan, headlights cutting through the dusk. Leave a Coke bottle and a Hanover High jersey at the spot where David died. At first, they talked about him, how he'd do impressions of the principal, how he'd trip over his own feet in the locker room. Now they just stand there, staring at the ground, wondering if the killer's among them. Because here's the thing about growing old with a secret. It stains. Tommy Riley, David's best friend, brings his grandson every year. "This is where a good kid died," he tells him. "Don't ever stop asking why." The boy's 6. He doesn't understand, but he will. Hanover High's 1975 yearbook still sells for $200 online. Not because of the photos or the doodles, because of page 47. There's David, freckled grin, color popped, eyes squinting against the sun. Next to his picture, a caption: "Future pilot. Class clown. Gone too soon." His classmates are grandparents now. Retired teachers, mechanics, one former mayor. But David? He's frozen. Forever 17. Forever promising to take his mom to Hawaii. Forever one day shy of tomorrow. And the killer? He'd be in his 70s now. Maybe 80s. Could be dead. Could be sitting on a porch swing, reading this in the local paper. Could be your neighbor, your uncle, your dad. That's the poison of an unsolved murder. It doesn't just steal a life, it steals trust. Turns every stranger into a suspect. Every laugh into a lie. Hanover looks the same. White church steeples, pumpkin patches, kids biking down Main Street. But scratch the surface and you'll find cracks. Like how nobody mentions David's name at the fall festival. How the diner took Longfellow's French fries off the menu in 1998. How the high school quietly removed his memorial plaque after too many students called it cursed. Grief, when left to fester, becomes shame. But here's what they can't erase: the Polaroid. The one David clutched as he died, Sarah, mid-laugh, blurred and glowing. It's framed in the Grafton County evidence room. Dusty, forgotten. But every few years, a rookie cop will pause, tilt their head, and ask, "Who's that girl?" And for a moment, David's alive again. A boy, a photo, a question. That's the legacy of a life cut short. Not monuments or vigils, but the stubborn, unkillable echo of a name. David Longfellow. David Longfellow. David Longfellow. So why keep telling this story? Because the alternative is surrender. Because somewhere in an attic trunk, there's a boot that fits a size 10 print. Somewhere in a locked drawer, there's a diary with a name scribbled in the margins. Somewhere in a nursing home, there's an old man who stares too long at autumn leaves. And somewhere in Oregon, there's a woman who still smells gunpowder in the rain. David's killer took his future, but his story, that's ours to carry. So we'll say his name. We'll ask the questions. We'll wait, because the dead can't speak. But the living owe them the truth. Let's cut through the noise. Strip away the rumors, the theories, the decades of maybe. Here's the bare, bleeding truth. A 17-year-old boy is dead. His killer walked free. And someone knows why. This isn't a riddle. It's not entertainment. It's a life reduced to a headline. A family tree chopped off at the roots. So before you click away, ask yourself, what if this were your brother? Your son? Your friend, frozen in time, smiling from a yearbook while the world forgets? Who killed David Longfellow? Let's lay it bare. Was it a stranger? A trucker passing through? A drifter with nothing to lose? Maybe. But why David? No robbery. No assault. Just a bullet and a ghost. Was it a friend? Someone who ate lunch at his table, cheered at his games, seethed in silence? Jealousy festers. Grudges rot. But could a classmate pull the trigger and then sit next to an empty desk Monday morning? Or was it a ghost? A phantom in the woods? A shadow without a face? No. Ghosts don't pull triggers. Ghosts don't buy Italian boots. Ghosts don't keep secrets for 50 years. The killer is human, flesh and blood. And he's out there. Think about what's at stake here. Not solving a cold case. Not true crime content. This is about a boy who never got to graduate. His diploma sits in a drawer, unsigned. Fall in love. Sarah's Polaroid is the last smile he saw. Grow old. His parents died without grandchildren. Without answers. This isn't a story. It's a theft. And the thief still has David's future in his pocket. Think about your family. Your home. That box in the attic you haven't opened in years. The one with your grandpa's old coat. His journals. His rifle. What's in there? A receipt from a Concord boot shop, dated 1974? A map of Route 112 with a circle around Lover's Lookout? A confession scribbled on yellowed paper, folded and forgotten? Or maybe a story, one your drunk uncle slurred at Thanksgiving. Did I ever tell you about the kid in New Hampshire? Secrets don't vanish. They hide. In attics. In old age. In the way your dad changes the channel when true crime shows come on. Dig. Please. Share this video. Not for views. Not for clicks. Share it because David's killer might be your neighbor's grandfather. Share it because Sarah Mills still jumps at car backfires. Share it because Helen Longfellow's ghost still waits at Lover's Lookout. Share it because the 12th pair of Italian boots is still out there, dusty, cracked, but intact. Share it because cold cases aren't cold. They're waiting for a tip, a slip, a conscience. Share it because the difference between justice and oblivion is you. David's classmates are in their 60s now. They gather every year, but the group gets smaller. Soon, no one will be left to remember his laugh. Unless we keep it alive. So talk about him. Say his name at dinner tables. Post his photo. Tag the Grafton County Sheriff. Make his story so loud the killer can't sleep. So bright the truth can't hide. So relentless, the world has no choice but to answer. Listen to me. The killer is old. He's tired. He's scared. And he knows, every day that passes is a day closer to the end. Closer to judgment. Closer to whatever comes next. So let's make sure his last thought isn't relief. Let's make it regret. David Allen Longfellow was born March 8th, 1957. He loved root beer floats, hated trigonometry, wanted to learn how to fly. And on October 12th, 1974, someone decided his life wasn't worth a pair of Italian boots. We don't accept that. We don't close the book. We don't look away. Share this video. Call the tip line. End this. The question isn't who killed David Longfellow. It's when will you tell us? We're waiting.